Damn, son, where'd you find this?
Ladies, understand something. The top end of a woman's weight is 145 pounds. Okay. My mother's 5'9", and she was 145 pounds until she was 50. That's the top end of your weight, because there should be about a 40-pound difference between you and men.
Basically, if the guy is rich, what ends up happening is the lawyer contacts the person and be like, hey, you know, your name gonna be all in the paper, so you might as well just settle out of court.
I can recognize talent. Even if I don't agree with the politics, a lot of the politics that was underlying in the show and some of the sentiments he was trying to share, I recognize artistry when an artist is present.
Yes, this is the definition of absolutely cooked. We'll never go back and take a look at her bad decision and take accountability for any of that.
Because there is powerful people in the industry, somehow there is a different law that applies to them. And I agree with that assessment.
Yo, what's up, people? Peace and blessings, glory, praise, and honor to the Most High. I rebuke Satan. I rebuke every single objective and every pitfall that he tries to put in front of us this evening. I appreciate y'all. I want to say thank you to everybody who is here, who's been rocking over the last couple months, last couple of days, new subscribers, all that, man. Thank you. Appreciate you. It's all love. Shout outs to my writers, poets, content creators, singers, producers, all of y'all. Look, man, Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You're not going to want to miss the show. It's going down. This is going to be one of those. And I'm excited. I'm super excited. We got three performers pulling up. We got poetry. We got the conversation. It's going to get deep. It's going to get very, very saucy. Make sure you tap in. I got my partner here. She's been just so graceful, and I appreciate her so much for taking time out of her life to come up here and share her thoughts with us, man. Do me a solid. Make sure you go show her some love. Mia, what's up?
Hey, how are you?
I'm good, man. I love my soundboard.
That threw me off a little bit.
I should have warned you before. I have a habit of pushing on them buttons a lot. If I hear something, like if you cooking up here and you say some real fire stuff, I'm definitely going to hit one of these buttons.
Yeah. I mean, if you would have warned me, it would have taken away from the moment. So
yeah.
Jump in.
We good though, man. Let's just jump straight into it. Do you want to, before we even go there, do you want to plug anything? Do you want to speak to the people real quick before we go into this?
I'm Mia Musa. I'm a comedian, writer, producer. My birthday is next Tuesday. I'm working on a solo show. To my first time doing like a full set, and I'm working on like a web series, My Little Gig. So in the same breath, I'm thinking about like releasing and launching that for people to watch. So I definitely want to keep people posted on that. So to make sure just to kind of follow me, Mia Musa Comedy on IG, Threads. You can find me on TikTok somehow using that too. It's funny that what the topic is today, because they'll go into some things, but yeah, because it'll be dope for people to check that out and comment on it and just like stay tuned in that. But yep, that's it.
That's what's up. That's what's up, man. Y'all heard her. Go ahead and hit that button real quick. It'll only take a couple of seconds. But speaking of pushing buttons, this has been a topic for a while. I've talked to people. I've even been on the receiving end of this before.
Mm-hmm.
Shadow banning, social media in particular.
Mm-hmm.
Where does it come from? Why does it happen? And why does it happen to specific people over other people?
Yeah, I mean, I make a joke on stage sometimes, especially when I first started doing comedy a couple of years ago, that I started doing stand up because I kept getting muted and banned on Facebook, on social media, you know. So I was just like, on stage, you can't mute me from here, you know. But it's a thing. It's a real thing. I've definitely been the victim of it. It hasn't happened to me. Like I think I am shadow banned to a degree. But being in like Facebook jail and IG jail, I haven't. To TikTok, like they took my promotional post down about my show, saying that it violated community guidelines, and I'm just like, what guideline did I violate by putting a flyer up and say like, come see me? So, you know, sometimes I feel like it's something else, and then they'll nitpick on these little, you know, on those type of things. Like if you talk about different topics, and these platforms are so in our phones and so in our data, you never know if it really is like something that you did on the platform itself or other things that you might be into.
I did a live stream yesterday, which is weird that you brought this up. And the gentleman, he was talking about how they use your data in your phone. They even use the way that you navigate your mouse on your screen. And they based all of those things on how to promote to you, how to reach you in your device. Text messages, phone calls, the ads that come in your stories, the ones that come into your scrolling the timeline on TikTok or whatever. For whatever reason, whatever you click on, whatever you're grocery shopping for or virtual shopping for, they find a way to put it in your face.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought that was kind of weird. It's not weird because, I mean, I always thought they were watching us anyway. But even going to the extent that you're picking and choosing who you want to hold moral compass for is ridiculous to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a very real thing. When I actually went to school for media and communications, and it's this documentary that we watched, and this was back in like 2008, 2009, and it was this. It wasn't really well. Okay, let's call it a documentary called like 2015. I haven't been able to find it, but it was supposed to kind of show in the near future. And one of the things that it was saying was that, you know, we would go to a store and the store would pick up or be able to scan the receipt from the last store. And then when we went into somewhere else, we'd be like, oh, I see that you got avocados. Don't you want to try this sourdough bread or something like that? And so, you know, we don't necessarily have that. But with everything being on the internet, now we see what that has turned into, you know. But they do scan your cookies, they scan your phone activity, you know. They do pay attention to like how long you've been looking at something, and then they'll develop an algorithm around that. You know, so that's why it's like sometimes I don't know if people are necessarily like their content is being limited. Because one thing I noticed is that especially like if you're trying to promote something, they'll limit that. But if you post like a selfie or something, they'll promote that. And I think that there's other agendas attached to those things. Just like I noticed that some years ago, but now you see all of this AI that looks like us, right? And the more that we post, the more views to create these things. And so, of course, you're going to reward posting yourself and talking about yourself and maybe a selfie over posting a promo flyer. But when they set it up that you could like pay for it, then it's like, okay, I'm gonna limit this so that now if you pay $20, now it actually your actual followers can actually see it. Because otherwise, only about 10% of your followers are seeing your content. You know, which is crazy. And I was thinking about it with like Threads. Anytime there's a new social media platform, like they'll make it more open and they'll let you see other people, or the algorithm kind of suits you, and you know, you see the collaborative element of people. And then once it becomes popular, then we see it taken over by like advertisers and, you know, curated interest, you know, those type of things. You know, so I don't know. I'm always curious. And like you said, kind of like who gets to decide, you know, what people get to see or not. And the way that censorship has worked, especially the past like 5 years on these platforms that kind of make it seem like they're free and open, or have made it seem like it's free and open, but certainly are not.
If I'm being honest, I think the only real way to avoid these type of situations as much as you can is to have your own app, have control over your own site, because there was a video that I watched a year ago, and the guy was saying, look, man, the way that they got it set up, you can post poems and pictures and stuff like that, but when it comes to the promotion stuff, they want you to pay for that. They want you to pay to promote. The thing that they're making money off of are ads. And if you want to make any type of retention for your content, you're going to have to pay. And I think that part of it has extreme detriments to it, especially if you're someone who's not in a position to just cough up $10-15 a day just to have your one particular piece of upload shown frequently in a story or in a reel. Everybody can afford that. Not to mention, you're pretty much telling us that freedom of speech is not really freedom of speech. So why would I even pay to have anything re-liked or reshared, or just even having someone to look at your video for 5 seconds, all for you to still try to undercut me because I'm speaking out on Donald Trump or the Epstein case or whatever? Like, I don't know, that's crazy to me.
Yeah. I don't know where the line is drawn. I mean, I personally believe in what we call media literacy over censorship. I think that we should teach people how to critically think and critically view stuff, and let them come to their own conclusions, and let content sink or swim based off of that. And, you know, it's gotten kind of scary, like looking at this last election. And I'm not having no judgment on who people voted for or none of that. And I'm not making any assumptions. But what is true is that a lot of the people that supported the winner are tech entrepreneurs that control what we watch, listen to, and engage with. And that's a scary thought and idea, you know, that media always had that sort of influence. But the fact that we have these private companies that can have this type of influence that appear like it's free speech, or it appear like people are coming to the same conclusions, when really it's been influenced by what content might have been being pushed in people's algorithm. And that's something, again, that we got to kind of think about and be mindful of, like, as we're engaging with certain content. Like, is this something I would have thought on my own? You know, how much am I thinking something is real just because I see it all the time? Because all of our stuff looks different. Even though another thing that phones do is it'll read the people that are around you, and then your stuff starts to reflect the people that are around you too. But it can give a really false sense of reality, and like this digital bubble that will shape your worldview around things, you know. So,
That's scary, considering we spend majority of our time now on the internet.
yeah, and I think, we know that TV and like news had that type of influence, but we would turn TV off. You know, we're not turning this stuff off. We're engaging with it constantly. And also, it was really obvious, or a little bit more obvious, that if something was on a major network on a TV channel, then there was the producers and the advertisers, and they were the ones that are controlling this, or whatever we want to call it. But with social media, again, it makes it look like it's the people that's controlling it, and it's the people. That's what the people think. And it's like, yes, there are people that think this, but if you are censoring or shadow banning like certain groups of people, then we're not getting a realistic tapestry. But then you might throw an opposing view out there and let them get the views, so it looks like it's a free platform, and it looks like that it's for safety, but it's not. And I appealed. Like today, I had a flyer, I appealed it, and immediately they were just like, no, we're holding up our decision, which isn't fair. And it also showed no humans actually looked at it to do that. But to think about the stuff that's this was on TikTok, to think about the stuff that's on TikTok just freely, and the things that you can just see. Like, I can't talk about shots, right? I can't talk about vaccines. I got Facebook banned. I mean, I got in Facebook jail because somebody was like trying to reach out to me, and I was like, okay, I'll hit you up. And then they read that as like me threatening the person. So I can't say that. But you can have like fight videos going around, or you can have like people half naked fighting and stuff. Like, I've seen that on Facebook, and it be circulated and not taken down, and people pages not be banned. But I can't say I can hit you up. Like, that's the type of stuff that's weird to me, because I can't fully understand what their standard is.
I was scrolling on Instagram today, 2 different videos. In one of the videos, the guy was shooting into a tow truck. And then I guess he didn't succeed. The driver in the tow truck, he managed to back up. But he didn't just back up. He backed up so he can gather speed so that he can come back. So he backs up, he comes back. The dude who was shooting at him, I don't know why he was still standing around. The driver comes back, runs him over. He hits him, he goes up in the air, he drives over his body, and then he leaves. And then I seen another one where the guy was trying to break into her house. The dad shoots through the door, kills him on camera. I'm like, all right, how did this make it past your guidelines? But my poems and my live streams, they get shut down. I haven't been able to use most of the features on Instagram for like over 2 years.
Mm, that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, anything that you can think of that's demonic, you see it constantly. A friend of mine sent me a picture from someone in the Palestine. It was a child. This shit is graphic. It's one of those DVDs that we used to watch when we were teenagers, and it was like you see people get shot unalive in person, and all it was that it's brutal. A little kid,
Mm,
half their body blown off. How do you get to send me this, but I can't post what I post? Like that right there is crazy to me.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think about, I think it's either Neely Fuller or John Henrik Clark. I can't remember who said it, but it's a quote, and I'm gonna mess it up, but it was basically saying that, like, in a nutshell, paraphrasing, once you understand like white supremacy, it'll make everything else make sense. And that's kind of how a lot of times I'll see the lens I see things through. I see it, on and that lens, and then like I say, it makes sense. Because even when you think about like back in the day and like public lynchings and all of that, so it would make sense that you want to promote this violent content. It would make sense, in capitalism, that you would want to promote things that's going to make us not like each other, be distrustful of one another, that type of stuff. That would make sense. And on the other side, you're talking about like demonic and stuff, and like quoting the Bible. Like I always think about the verse, what you put your, again, I'm misquoting everything because my head is not working right now. But what you put your treasure into is where your heart really is, what you're really worshiping, paraphrasing, deeply paraphrasing. So I pay attention to that, I pay attention to what these companies are investing in and the imagery that they want to invest in, to know like what their actual true intentions are, and again, that's one of the driving forces of me starting stand up. Like I always been a fan of comedy and all of that, but like I wanted to be in person talking about stuff without it being like edited or shut down. Like you're going to have to hear this and we're going to have a conversation about it. But even still, because of the impact of just how we've become, it's become harder for us to listen to things that we don't agree with. One thing that's really happened to comedy is people still trying to edit themselves and censor themselves for this like mythical like idea of what's acceptable. And a lot of it is mythical because a lot of people don't even agree with it, but they know that if they say it online, then they could get attacked for it, and then it makes them decide whether or not they want to say it in real life. And then when people are bold enough to say it out loud, then everybody kind of, oh, you said it, let me go over there and be a part of this. And sometimes that's a good thing. And then sometimes it creates these like hate groups that continue to grow and breed, because of the people feeling silenced in this one area. Now it's just like, okay, well, since I can say it over here and create all of this. And still, even me talking, because I'm like, I don't even know if what I'm saying is making sense because I'm trying not to be explicit about what I'm actually saying.
I know what you're talking about.
And like, I'm still kind of self-editing and self-censoring, in ways I wouldn't if there wasn't a camera. But in doing comedy too, people, tell me, if you make videos and you can try to go viral and all of that, then you could get booked and all that. But it's just like, I didn't start comedy to do that, So it's like, sometimes, yeah, I'll put a little bit of content out there, but like, that's not the space. And I'm active online, but it's just like, that's not the space I'm really looking to promote that in, because I think it is killed it in a way, I feel like I'm going on a tangent though, so I'm gonna stop talking.
All right, look, you good. You know what I'm saying? As far as I'm concerned, I have look. I don't know how many times I've been kicked off of YouTube. Matter of fact, if I can actually give an accurate number, I've been kicked off of YouTube, or at least I've been suspended approximately 4 times.
Mm,
I got kicked off of here for 2 weeks for talking about the vaccine.
mm,
I got kicked off of here because I was speaking on Epstein.
mm.
Then the other two, I can't even remember. They didn't even really give me a reason for that. But it was like, what are you talking about? I go scrolling YouTube all the time and I see people doing conspiracy theories, talking about blood sacrifices and people being cloned and all of this. How is what I'm doing causing harm or being misinformative? How am I damaging anyone's anything compared to what everybody else is saying and doing up here? You got women that pop up on these drinks in these stories. They claim that they're yoga instructors. No, the hell you're not. You're not no fucking yoga instructor, man. You sitting up here hiding behind this clause in this loophole that says you can make it seem educational, and then you can just get by without having any type of accountability for really advertising porn. That's all you're really doing.
You know, I was about to say the educational thing because last summer I was working with these teens and they they tried to show me. I was like, please don't. This guy shaving his butthole, and apparently it was able to stay on YouTube because it was educational, and that is what, like you said, you got kicked off for talking about Epstein and the vaccine, but this guy can have his butthole on the on YouTube where anybody can see. And it's being circulated by teenagers. I think they saw it on TikTok, and it was like multiple reaction videos to it and all of that. It's like it doesn't make any sense.
I guess technically they are giving us their ass to kiss.
I guess, yeah.
Question: do you think? Because I'm glad you brought the comedy part up, because I noticed it too. How much has it changed since the 90s to you? Because I think it's dramatically changed. We don't have that Richard Pryor, Dave Chappelle type of Martin Lawrence raw type of comedy anymore. And I always loved comedy just because you can say whatever the hell you want. You can be honest. It's like that's the only stage where you can be racist and all that and get away with it. Like, how do you feel about the transition between then and now?
Yeah, I have multiple thoughts and feelings about it. Like, yes, comedy is supposed to be the place that anybody can say anything. And again, I don't believe in censorship. So I think people should be able to say what they want. And I think they also should be fine with the consequences that comes with. So I don't agree when people say something that's ignorant or harmful to a group of people, and that group of people speaks out, and now you're just like, well, I should be able to say it because I'm trying to be funny. Yes, you can say it, but if they don't want to support you anymore, and if they want to tell other people not to support you, and if they want to, cause physical harm to you, that's kind of like part of the game a little bit. At the same time, again, if we have the art form of comedy not be a space where people can say whatever they want, then we lose some real storytelling and history telling. Like, I was watching, I like Tubi for archival stuff, for old stuff, because they have like older programming or pilots that weren't successful. They got a whole bunch of old black movies on there and all of that. So they got Def Comedy Jam on there, and they got old Apollo episodes. So I was watching that really heavy for a couple weeks one time. And I remember I got to the season of Def Comedy Jam when they was talking about when the O.J. Simpson trials was going on, And it's just like, I was a kid when that was happening. I remember I was like 7 or like in the 2nd grade. So it's just like, I witnessed it, but I didn't fully witness it or understand what was going on. And so I'm learning from these comedians what the pulse of the people were, by hearing their different perspectives. And because multiple comedians was talking about it, I'm able to see it and hear it from different angles. And it was a couple of like pop culture moments where I was able to like capture that and get that. And so I think part of the attack on comedy is because we have a general attack on free speech right now, and people being able to say exactly what it is, so that we can kind of gaslight the public in certain directions. But like I said, at the same time, when comedy was being controlled just by men or just by straight men or just by white men, you know what I mean? Like, they were able to say and do certain things, and the people who were harmed by it didn't have a voice. And so now that people have a voice because of social media, and you're starting to hear their offense, that doesn't mean that people weren't offended before. It was just that we just didn't hear about it, or you heard about it in your living room. And so I think some comics have to mature and have to make it funny, because I've seen sometimes it's just not funny, and you want to blame it on like PC culture or woke or whatever. Sometimes it's just not funny. Back in the day, and again, watching some of those old whatever, I'm supposed to just laugh because you said the lady was fat. Like, that's not funny anymore. It's played out. But you can still make a fat joke if you make it funny, if you make it clever, So I've seen that. I've seen people still, especially when I see like the more seasoned comedians. Like I saw right, you say because we can't do fart jokes all day, right? Like, it's in elementary school, you could just make a fart sound and everybody crack up. If you do that, you 35 years old, like, it's not funny anymore. So you gotta like, comedy changes, comedy shifts. That's okay. And I think that audiences are losing artistic nuance. And Chappelle said that, there was a lot that was, I'm a Chappelle fan down, okay? Like, I'm still trying to figure out how to get to his show this summer in Ohio. He's my favorite comedian, hands down. That first special he came back with, a lot of those jokes he got in trouble for, they fell flat. They did. They were not good enough. And I think it's because he was locked up in his room for 15 years in Ohio, in the middle of Ohio. When he came back and fixed them up a little bit, they got better and they had something deeper to it. But they already had him on the hate train. And I don't like, when audiences kind of write somebody off or write something off when they just don't understand it. And they can't understand like the greater message that was being shared. But again, there's some gaslighting there, because you can go to other comics and see way more offensive jokes and they're not getting in trouble for it, So I don't know. I know I said a lot in saying that. And there's a lot of things beyond like PC stuff. It's a lot of industry things that have changed. 90s was also a very unique time in comedy history, because before that, comedy was really mostly nightclubs and late night shows. And particularly for Black comedy, that was the first time, the 90s was the first time it really, really got extra attention, with having Comic View and Def Comedy Jam and some of those other things. And those people being able to turn that into like sitcoms. So, and that kind of fizzled out and died out by the end of the 90s. with the exception of those that went on. But a lot of the more successful people like Jamie Foxx and Eddie Murphy and all of them, like some of them ended up being like dramatic actors, or action stars. So not even on the like stand up tip. And so there's a reinvestment in comedy in many ways. But will it ever get back to that point? I don't really know. But I do encourage people to go see live comedy because it makes a big difference. Even your favorite people, like there's people that I've seen that I never thought was funny online or on TV, and I saw them live and they like really got busy. You know what I mean? Not only were they hilarious, but their social commentary, their cleverness was totally on point. But you're not going to see that from them on social media, on a TV special.
To be honest, this was just a matter of time. And I'm not just talking about with comedy in general. I'm just talking about the narrative, the agendas. It's almost as if you take a lighter and you flick it, the flame comes up, and then you put it to somebody's arm. What do you think is going to happen? They're going to move away from the flame. And it's like you stick that lighter in front of somebody and you say, look, you're going to get burnt if you stay here, meaning you keep on saying the things that you're saying, you keep on talking about the things that you're talking about because we have our own motives and you're going against that, and we can't have that because we're trying to convert and we're trying to create a different version of your personal euphoria. And if you keep going against it, well, you're going to have to suffer for it. And this is the flame. The flame is set to push you over here so that we can continue to build what we're building right here. And that's the only reason why it's like, I'm not surprised that any of this is happening. It's apparent. It's pretty obvious. I believe that these people are pretty meticulous, callous, and they don't really care because this is what they've been trying to implement for decades anyway. So now that you see it happening, some people are flabbergasted and trying to figure out where did the time go. Me, I'm like, I already saw this unfolding slowly but surely. It was just in increments and little baby steps. I agree though. I would absolutely prefer to go live and watch somebody than watch it online because everything seems to be watered down now anyway. Well, but they want to water down. I'll say that. I can't get away. I can't get away with what they be doing.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it is quite watered down. I think a lot of the new comics, especially people that are more my peers, a lot of them are scared to really push the envelope. And like even myself, like I'm known for being a little provocative as far as like pushing the envelope. But one, I don't really mean to push the envelope. So if I know something is going to like be controversial, I'm going to possibly not say it. But I've told people like I'm going to these mics or shows or my gigs by myself, and I don't got it like that to have security. So it's just like I gotta be careful what I say on stage. So I'm not doing stuff from the distance of, and so the people though that have that security, like a Chappelle, like a Chris Rock, like they have been physically harmed by the stuff that they have said. So I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of younger comics or newer comics are afraid to push the envelope too much. And then even what goes viral, the content that goes viral online, which is now intrinsically linked to how you get booked, a lot of that is just like interesting storytelling, and just kind of who you are identity wise or as an individual, and not always just like the quality or like what you're trying to say. And so I don't know, it's going to be important. I think people just got to remember to continue to cultivate spaces in real life. And I think that's partially one of the agendas, is to keep us from connecting hand to hand, you know, because the more separated that we are from one another, and I think a lot of us saw this during the shutdown, the more we're physically separated from one another, the easier it is for us to be manipulated, because now we are relying on these screens to tell us what's going on outside. It's just like when you think about the ridiculousness of checking your weather on your phone when you could just look outside. You know what I mean? Like, that's where we are as a society. Now, of course, the weather might tell you something a little down the line, but there's other signs of that. And so, yeah. So that's why I just like, that's one of the reasons why I do events. Like, I was nervous about putting this show together next week, and I'm being really last minute about it. But I just think now is such an important time to tell your truth, you know? So I'm using this as the opportunity to get on a mic and tell my truth. And I want to do that in a safe space. And be bold enough to put it out there, because a lot of the stuff, like I just recently put my stuff on YouTube. For the most part, I haven't. I have not invested putting anything on there. But yeah, I think we have to hear each other out. We gotta get back to barbershops. Like, we gotta get back to hair salons, to family gatherings, like, and be able to have the bandwidth to really like hear each other out, you know. And we come to different conclusions when we have like real conversations. Oh, there's like a party happening. I'm sorry, that's somebody I had to. But yeah, sorry.
The effect that censorship has had on people all across the country is quite evident. You get on any platform right now, people are scared to say stuff, talk about certain stuff. I done got kicked off of every platform that I used for saying something out of my mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I still go back and I still talk because I don't care. Because at the end of the day, it's still freedom of speech. You're not going to shut my mouth. You can correct me if I'm wrong about something. But bottom line is, y'all too sensitive. People are way too sensitive. You take away comedy, like, y'all just got rid of it. Because Donald Trump is the type of petty that would try to just get rid of something fun. He just seemed like that. Imagine if there was no more comedy shows, nobody making you laugh, and it was just straight go to work and come home. Dude, I don't want to live in a world like that. I don't want to live in a world where everybody is scared to say what's the truth. I'm scared to live in a world where everybody is hiding behind, oh, they don't want to get sued, or they don't want to get charges pressed against them, or they don't want to get attacked by a group of folks who are too sensitive to understand that just because you don't agree with it does not give you the right to assault somebody. That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. Donald Trump, I keep saying his name, I don't know why, but because he's one of them people that he be doing the wildest shit on camera. And he be getting away
One of my
with
favorite comedians. He's one of my favorite comedians. He's hilarious.
Real.
So you realize he running the country, then it's not funny no more. But
Exactly.
But yeah. Like I said, I'm on both sides of the coin because, you know, on one hand, we have in general gotten more sensitive, and really because I work with high schoolers, right? And I learned, like, I was teaching English last year, and we were going over rhetorical devices like metaphors and similes. And it was so hard for them to make these connections. And people are becoming more and more literal thinkers and not being able to understand like artistic nuance and making those extra connections. And that's where I get into it with a lot of people, because it's just like they just see what's on the surface and not digging deeper into what is actually being said. At the same time, like I said, you know, part of saying what needs to be said and so-called standing on business is understanding that people aren't going to agree with you, and you might have to deal with the consequences of that, you know. So everything can't be a safe space. Everything can't be a safe space. So you either cultivate your safe space for what you want to say and do, which again, there's dangers to that as well. Or you have to deal with the consequences of talking in a loudspeaker with diverse groups of people. And ultimately, I hope that people grow from it and learn some compassion. But that compassion should not be at the risk of truth and facts and people sharing their reality from their perspective, you know. But part of, again, being sensitive is also being sensitive to critique and accountability, you know, because people will throw that out there. And I'm not saying that's what you were doing at all, but I've seen people throw that out there, especially like maybe like white comics. And they're just like, everybody being sensitive. Like, well, you being sensitive because you crashing out right now because somebody said they ain't like your joke. Like, and so, we can't just say it because of it's certain groups that we don't understand, or that person don't necessarily understand. Nobody likes to feel like they're being attacked. And certain groups we've become used to attacking all the time and always being the butt of the joke. And like I said, now that those people that have normally been silenced, and that includes all of us, have more of a platform to speak out and say certain stuff, our comedy has to mature. At the same time, we also, and this is where media literacy comes in, a lot of times it don't be the group, it be an individual tweet, and then blog site says, oh, people that like unicorn community spoke out against this thing. And it was just like, no, it was user 5535 on Reddit. Like, that's not everybody. Now we attacking this group because that one person, because of a clickbait, people don't even be reading the article, but some clickbait article. And we got to stop doing that too. We got to stop making judgments off of clips and sound bites. Then this is why I'm cool with like doing stuff like this where it's like a full conversation, but easily somebody could take 5 seconds of this conversation and make it seem like either of us said something that we didn't really say, and create this framing around it. And that to me, I think is really unfair. If we are, there's plenty of times where I've had opinions on something that's based off of just a headline. But for the most part, if we really going to talk about something or criticize people or decide we're not going to support them, at the very least we should have an understanding about where they were coming from and what they meant by what they said, and what their approach was to it. Or and if you still decide that you don't agree, that's perfectly fine, but it's immature and dangerous to do anything but that.
Sensational.
I agree. And that's the balance that I would like to see more of. At least for me, I try to do that as much as possible, because Travis Hunter had Somebody, I don't know who started it, but someone said that Leanna Lene was getting a divorce from him. She was crashing out online. She did a video, went viral, and then guess what happens? Everything that you just said. Somebody or a multitude of somebody's, what they did was they took different clips from different timelines in their life. They threw them together, made a collage of a story that was actually from different situations, and they painted this narrative that he was getting in trouble with the NFL, that he was abusive, all this stuff, and it was like y'all just ran with it. I literally went to the source. I pulled up the receipts, put them on the screen. I told you, look, ain't nothing. That's about his father. It ain't got nothing to do with him. They're not getting a divorce. Y'all need to stop listening to this stuff. And then it's like 5 different YouTubers who are doing reactions to it. They're all using the same artificial intelligence. That same clip being narrated by AI. Same video. It's like 5 different people using the same video on the same story. Y'all ain't really do no real work. Y'all ain't really try to get to the bottom of that. Y'all just wanted to get some clicks and views and create a scenario out of something that wasn't even accurate. You don't really want the truth. And now you're not only lying on them, you're compromising your own quality and your own content just so that you can get some attention. That's not how anybody in these positions should be utilizing their platform. That's what I don't like about the misuse of shadow banning and stuff like that. Because if you're going to use it, make sure you're using it accurately, unbiasedly.
Right. Which, how does one actually do that? And then now that they've let computers take over and bots take over, that and given the example again of like I'm gonna hit you up, the fact that they didn't recognize that as a slang shows like the cultural bias that exists with a lot of these bands. But you even saying the AI thing, the voiceover, that YouTube just said they're not going to monetize that content anymore, which I think is interesting. But I think I support it for this very reason. For people just kind of regurgitating stuff. Like I had somebody had posted Millie Jackson singing "My Neck, My Back," but it wasn't really her. But they made it seem like that Kaya song was a remake of this Millie Jackson song. And, it didn't say that it was AI. And I went to Google it. And because that has been shared in so many ways and people finding it and now like making another post or story about like, oh, I just found out. Now it looks legitimate, and there's nothing refuting it as that. And it's just so easy nowadays for a story to be ran with. And so that's why, it's crazy that there is some level of monitoring to say like, all right, we need to shut this down. You can't have this. This goes against the community standards. But you can have so much misinformation just run rampant at the same time. Is just absolutely nuts. And it really does make you question what the greater agendas are, because they also switching back and forth, and it's different for everybody. It's kind of how different individuals are being policed online. What they see is truly varying, so
Does it get better or does it get worse?
I mean, I think I think it's about to get worse. You know, I think what gets better is that, like, you can control people, but so much. Every time they have tried to control people in a certain way, it's always going to be some backlash, and it's always going to be some like breaking of the window. Now, I think they've made us like addicted and reliant on a lot of these things, but when they push too far, humans and our freedom spirit is always going to either create something else or do something else. And so I think it'll be worse before it gets better. I thought that we were moving back towards like freedom of speech, you know, especially with some of these tech people. Like, I feel like they were supporting Trump so that they could go back to more freedom of speech, and they might have taken down some of the like fact checkers, but they haven't. It's still clearly creating a certain narrative and agenda. Like, I haven't been on X, I haven't been on Twitter, but I've heard that the vibe has completely changed, and the content that's allowed to grow on there has completely shifted. And so it shows that there's still a high level of curation when it comes to these platforms. You know, that again, we have to be mindful of, because that's on everything. But like, just being mindful that that's what's happening. And it's not just people being able to talk and be freely, but there is a certain narrative that's being promoted and allowed to grow, even if it is just allowing conflict to happen or confusion, or just making it so that we can look at our cameras for as long as possible, and them using facial recognition so that I can now be a character on some app, you know?
The things that I've reacted to in this year alone, it got me looking at my TV sideways. It got me looking at my phone sideways. It got me looking at my laptop sideways. Everything got something built into it that's pretty much watching you. And you wouldn't believe it until someone actually does a test on it, and then you see it in real time. It's like, well, okay, all right, this is a little creepy. But it's not creepy enough for you to stop doing what you've been doing on a regular basis. Like, and I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna leave it here. Imagine if I could just pull up one video that I've done where they actually show you what your device does, like this part of the camera right here, what it actually does when you're not using it. I'm not talking about when you're scrolling and I'm talking when it's off. This is still running. There's no visible light to it, but it's still running. If I showed you that clip, you would definitely think twice about some stuff. But even then, even seeing it, people would ignore it and forget about it and just go on about their life, because you're not really visibly being harmed by it. It just seems innocent. And I think the shadow banning doesn't really hurt people the way that they think it does, or they feel it does, because if it was really affecting them, they would probably maneuver differently. I don't really care about the shadow banning at this point. I'm gonna still say what I want and do what I want until you kick me off everything. And even then, I'll find another way to use a different platform, and I'll start over again if I got to. But we need our comedy to stay comedy. For real. I like the uncomfortable stuff. When white people be talking about black people on the stage, I don't get bothered by it. I know you're either you're being truthfully honest about how you feel, or you're not. You're still up there getting paid to do a job. I'm not that emotionally disconnected that I'm just going to riot and stalk you because you said a couple of words. You can't control how everybody feels about certain things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the flash goes off in infrared. Yeah, he's right. He know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, somebody else said the facial recognition for law enforcement, and I think that's why it's important to have these conversations. Like you said, it seems like, oh, it's nothing. I've been talking about this stuff because again, I went to school for media studies, so privacy laws, all that, what's at risk, and most people have told me like, well, still going to use it anyway, or it don't really matter. I remember in the past, the only way that your phone was really off is if you took the battery out. Now they made it so we can't take the battery out. Why is that? So if you don't want your phone to spy on you, and I don't know if this is still the case, but you would have to put it in a microwave for it not to pick up 360 video and 360 audio around you. And it's constantly collecting that. Almost everything we post is going to the Library of Congress. All of this stuff is being monitored. And I think now we're starting to see the more evidence of what it's being used for. And a lot of those stories aren't getting out like that. People whose Alexa has been used against them in court, and now that we have like this deep fake technology, someone could take my voice right now, and make it to create a confession for something. So it might get like, this is something that probably won't affect the majority of people, but there's a potential that it affects somebody. And especially if you're in certain worlds where you are, oh goodness, I think lately people have been people that were talking about ICE on social media, and people that were talking about maybe Palestine, they are putting them on some sort of list. But again, I've been a part of activism work since I was a teenager. This is not a new development. And so when I see people say certain things, even when they saying like anti-Trump stuff, like 20 years ago, you couldn't do that without the FBI showing up at your door. So you think you're in a more fascist environment now. It's loosened up, but it's getting back there. They needed our data, so they let us say whatever we wanted to say for a little bit. Now they're like, okay, we got what we needed. We got to shut this down and go back to the way things were, where if you said anything against the government, if you said anything against the president, you're considered a threat. And what are we going to do about that threat? And there's so many small ways, like, again, people who call me crazy sometimes for saying this. But there's so many small ways that they can pick on you. And y'all can look up like Edward Snowden, and I can't remember what the movie is about him, but they were showing that they were trying to do something in the Middle East, and they found his family in the US, and they got the guy to break up with the girl or something, creating this trickle effect to get her to tell about something else. There has been CIA literally sending people acting like they wanted to date them. There's history of this stuff, and it becomes way easier. I'm not trying to scare nobody. Come on, this is a conspiracy theory. But again, I think people should, like, if you're going to be utilizing this stuff, I think you should be mindful about how it can be used. And I teach and I work with young people, and I do a joke that I on stage where I'm just like, I've seen kids on the phone trying to sell drugs, like you're walking with a wiretap. You're walking with a literal wiretap, and you are talking about selling drugs. Like, that's crazy, And I'm not going to go into what my joke is, but y'all can find it on YouTube somewhere. But yeah, there's people walking around not realizing that. And to me, that's crazy.
this is the wild wild west, man. They got this set up to where you think that you're running things and you ain't running nothing. You living in your own bubble. You create your own dynasty, your own kingdom. You think that you're really doing something. The whole time they're just pushing you into your own demise in many ways, bro. I just took the battery out of my landline. Why?
Mhm.
Because I had a bill collector just called me, and I know that as soon as I pick up, I'm not going to get an answer. You pick up the
Mhm.
phone, it's quiet for like like 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds. You say hello, then that beeps come on. Soon as it go beep, they're recording. I'm not falling for that. I'm
Mhm.
cool on that. They do it to your cell phone and everything. I'm good. But one thing I will say is pray more. If you're spiritual, that is. I believe in God and things of that nature. So I want to be covered as much as possible. The shadow banning, the YouTube strikes, and the favoritism and the nepotism and all that stuff that comes under all the isms is real, it's evident, it's clear that they're playing in our face. They've always been playing in our face, but they always mask it. And I brought this up Monday with Rob and Sydney, and I said the politicians are there to make sure that we don't storm the White House. They're there to make sure that we do not remove the veil from our face. That's it. Population control. Whole time they in there stealing money themselves. They crooked just like the rest of them. Thieves amongst thieves. Everybody's stealing from somebody. Name me one job where somebody didn't like somebody, or somebody wasn't getting out on somebody else, or somebody wasn't being sneaky with somebody else, or there wasn't infidelity or corruption, or like it's everywhere. You can't escape it. Doesn't really make a difference what platform you're on, rich, poor. Everybody is screwing everybody over, except for typically the ones who don't have it to be greedy enough to want to do anything like that. It's sad.
Mhm.
Do you have any last thoughts on just shadow banning or any of this in general? Like, I mean, because this is one of them things where you can talk about it for forever, but the whole point of these topics in general is just to give people a different perspective. It's like, look, man, I know we are on social media all day, but some things need to be talked about more than others, and I think this one needed to be brought to some attention.
I mean, I would just say, we should really be intentional about who we're supporting and who we're letting into our mental space. So if it's just your friends and family, or if you find somebody that you like what they got to say, like, go out of your way to subscribe, go out of your way to like, to save, you know, try your best to control your algorithm. That also means stuff that you don't really like, hide, even though that goes against what I'm saying, that partially we create this bubble, but we have to and again, when people are doing things where they're inviting you in real life spaces, do that. That's becoming a lost art. We are not outside as much as we were outside. And I don't mean just going to the club and stuff. I grew up in a place where people were sitting on the steps all day in the summertime, and we don't see that anymore or as much anymore. And we got to get back to that, to get back to ourselves and be able to know exactly, be able to better see and understand what's real and what's fake. Yeah, that's my final thoughts.
I miss sitting on the porch, sitting on them steps.
Look,
The street lights come on. You gotta be in the house. Some of your friends got to stay out longer than you, so you would get your butt whooped if you came in late, and they got to hang out a little longer. That's usually when the most fun starts to intensify, when it gets later, because when it gets dark time, everybody wanting to be mischievous.
yeah.
I miss the 90s. I swear I do sometimes.
Uh-huh. It's
But
not famous.
much love to the people. Carla, I see you in the building. My man Knight in the building, Greg in the building. Appreciate y'all. Matter of fact, let me go ahead and give y'all one of these real quick. Hold up. And that's a fact. When you gone, you gone. You know what I'm saying? Life is too precious to be playing around with. The older you get, the faster time goes. I just woke up this morning at 6, and it's already about to be Friday. It's like, damn. If you just laid around and ain't do nothing all day at this age, you tripping. I can't afford to just be laying around. I gotta constantly be doing something, even if it don't bear the fruit that I want at that time. I still gotta be doing something. So it is what it is. I'm gonna see you guys tomorrow, and also Saturday. I definitely need y'all to pull up Saturday. That's when it's going down, man. I'm excited for that one. I ain't gonna hold you, because now we starting to blend in the artists. We starting to get the singers, and every time I say shout out to the singers, the poets, the writers, I manifested. I kept speaking it until it came into fruition. So we here, Lord willing, He keeps all of this covered. Mia, I hope and pray that whatever you decide to do moving forward with your project, that is covered, that it aligns with the trajectory that you're trying to stay on. And actually that goes for everybody that's here in general. You know what I'm saying? I want to see everybody win. You don't have to know a person to want them to win. But
yeah, thank you again for having me on. Shout out to everybody that's been watching and engaging. I definitely enjoyed the chat. I had to keep because I'm on my phone, I had to keep trying to look into it. And like I said, anybody just follow me, Mia Musa Comedy. My project is My Little Gig, MYLORGIG. And if anybody's in the Baltimore area willing to travel, next Tuesday I'm doing it's going to be guest performances, so I can't say a solo show because it's going to be guest performances. There's going to be a DJ, but I'm going to be doing like a long set. I'm gonna be taping a special, a little independent, situation.
That's what's up.
Yeah.
Best of luck to you on that one.
Thank you.
Keep us posted. If there's anything that you need me to do to kind of share it out, or don't hesitate. Send me an email, shoot me a DM, whatever, and I got you covered.
Thank you. Will do.
The rest of y'all enjoy the rest of your evening. I'm going back into the laboratory. I'll see you guys tomorrow, Lord willing. Oh, do me a solid before you leave out.
What's the goddamn button?
Appreciate you.